The notification came through at 11:47 p.m. I was lying in my studio apartment, the one with the water stain on the ceiling that my landlord refused to fix. My phone lit up the darkness. Congratulations. You are a Mega Millions winner. Prize amount, $127,000. I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I just stared at those numbers until they burned into my retinas. $127 million. And in that moment of absolute silence, a single thought crystallized in my mind. Before I tell anyone, before I claim this money, I need to know the truth. I need to know who my family really is. Before I tell you how this experiment destroyed everything and rebuilt something better, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever wondered who would really be there for you when you have nothing, hit that like and subscribe button. Because what happens next will shock you. The story really begins 6 months before that notification. 6 months before I won, when I learned exactly what my family thought of me. My sister Rebecca was getting married. The wedding was at the Ritz-Carlton, ice sculptures, a 12-piece orchestra, Wagyu beef stations. Her fiancé Marcus came from oil money, old Texas money, the kind that doesn't just open doors, it owns the buildings. I was sitting at table 17, not at the family table. Table 17 was in the back corner, partially blocked by a column, next to the kitchen doors. I was wearing a dress I'd bought at Ross, $39. I'd done my own hair and makeup in my car because I couldn't afford a salon. My mother, Patricia, floated past in her custom Vera Wang gown. She didn't stop. She didn't smile. She just glanced at me and kept walking toward the head table where Rebecca was holding court like royalty. My older brother, Trevor, was already there, his arm around his wife, Melissa. They were laughing at something Marcus had said. Their glasses were filled with champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. I sat there alone, eating overcooked chicken, watching my family celebrate without me. The DJ announced the father-daughter dance. I watched my father Richard take Rebecca's hand. He was crying, tears of pride streaming down his face as they swayed to Butterfly Kisses. I had never seen him cry before. Not once in my 30 years of life. The DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. And now the mother-daughter dance. Rebecca pulled our mother onto the floor. They were both laughing, their heads close together, sharing some private joke. The photographer was everywhere, capturing every perfect moment, every embrace, every tear, every smile. I sat at table 17, alone, hidden by a column, and something inside me, something I'd been pushing down for years, finally cracked open. This was my family. This was how they saw me. I was the mistake, the afterthought, the daughter who didn't marry well, who didn't make enough money, who didn't matter. I left before they cut the cake. No one noticed. I drove home in my 2009 Toyota Corolla with the broken air conditioning, crying so hard I had to pull over twice. When I got to my apartment, I found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a bill for $400, my contribution to Rebecca's bridal shower gift. The gift I wasn't told about, the shower I wasn't invited to help plan. I was just expected to pay. That night, I made a decision. I started buying lottery tickets. 1 ticket. Every week. Always the same numbers. My birthday. My grandmother's birthday. The address of the only house where I'd ever felt loved. It wasn't hope. It was a tiny act of rebellion. A whisper to the universe that said, I deserve better than this. 6 months later, the universe whispered back, $127 million. I didn't tell anyone. Not my roommate, not my best friend, not a single soul. Instead, I did everything right. I found Marcus Chen, a wealth management attorney in downtown Houston. Not some guy with a billboard. A real attorney whose clients had names you'd recognize. I created an anonymous trust. I chose the lump sum. After federal taxes, state taxes, and all the legal fees, the wire transfer that hit my new private account was $67,800,000. $67.8 million. More money than my entire family had made in their combined lifetimes. Marcus shook my hand in his corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Congratulations, Miss Chen. Your life is about to change in ways you can't imagine. The first rule of sudden wealth is silence. Tell no one. Trust no one until you know who they really are. I looked out at the Houston skyline. The sunset was painting everything gold. I wasn't thinking about what I could buy. I was thinking about Table 17, about the column that hid me from view, about watching my mother dance with my sister while I sat alone eating $40 chicken. "Mr. Chen," I said, turning back to him. "Before I change my life, I need to run an experiment. I need to test my family." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "People reveal their true nature when they think you have nothing to offer them. What did you have in mind?" I told him. His expression never changed. When I finished, he opened his laptop and started typing. "Brilliant," he said. "Cruel, but brilliant. Let's make sure it's airtight." The experiment was simple. I was going to tell my family I'd lost everything, that I was desperate, that I needed help, and I was going to see what they would do. Not what they said, not what they promised, what they actually did. I drove to my parents' house 3 days later. It was a Sunday. Family dinner was sacred in the Chen household. At least, it was sacred for some family members. My parents lived in River Oaks, old money neighborhood. Their house had 6 bedrooms, a pool, and a 3-car garage. My father Richard had made his fortune in commercial real estate. My mother Patricia had never worked a day in her life. I parked on the street, even though there were 3 empty spaces in the driveway. I'd learned years ago not to assume I was welcome in those spaces. Rebecca's Lexus was there. Trevor's BMW was there. My Corolla belonged on the street with the Helps cars. I walked in through the front door. No one greeted me. The house smelled like my mother's signature pot roast. Expensive cuts of beef slow-cooked in red wine. I could hear laughter coming from the dining room. I followed the sound. They were all already seated. My father at the head of the table. My mother to his right. Rebecca and Marcus across from Trevor and Melissa. The only empty chair was at the far end. The kids' table spot. I was 30 years old. "Oh," my mother said, looking up as I entered. "Sarah, I didn't know you were coming. I'd told her 3 days ago I'd be here," she'd said. "Okay, fine." Those exact words. "Okay, fine." "Hi, everyone," I said, my voice small. The old Sarah voice. The voice of the girl who apologized for existing. Trevor glanced at me and went back to his phone. Rebecca smiled, but it was the smile you give strangers on an elevator. Marcus, to his credit, nodded. Melissa didn't look up from her wine glass. I sat down in the empty chair. A plate was set in front of me, but there was no food on it. The serving dishes were at the other end of the table. No one passed them down. I sat there, my empty plate mocking me, while my family ate and laughed and talked about things I wasn't part of. So Marcus closed the Henderson deal, my father was saying, his voice full of pride. $20 million property, waterfront. The commission alone is going to set them up for life. "Dad?" Marcus said, humble and perfect. "It was a team effort." "Nonsense," my father boomed. "You're a shark, a killer. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you build wealth." I watched my father look at Marcus the way he'd never looked at me. With respect, with admiration, with love. "And Trevor," my mother chimed in. "Tell everyone about Melissa's promotion." Melissa preened. "It's nothing, really. Just VP of operations. 6-figure salary, full benefits, stock options. The corner office with the view." Everyone congratulated her. Glasses were raised. More wine was poured. I sat at the end of the table with my empty plate and watched my family celebrate people who already had everything. This was my moment. The moment I'd been planning for 3 days. I started. My voice cracked. Everyone looked at me like I'd interrupted a symphony. I need to tell you all something." My mother sighed. That long-suffering sigh. The one that said, "Here we go again. Sarah's going to make everything about her." "I lost my job," I said. It was a lie. I'd quit the day after I'd won the lottery. But they didn't need to know that. The company downsized. They let go of half the department. I don't have any savings. I can't make rent this month. My landlord is threatening to evict me in 5 days. Silence. Complete and total silence. They just stared at me. Then Trevor laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of a laugh. Again? He said. Seriously, Sarah? Again? What do you mean again? I whispered. You're always in some crisis, Melissa said, swirling her wine. Always broke, always struggling. Maybe it's time to look at the common denominator. She meant me. The common denominator was me. How much? My father asked. His voice was flat. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask what happened. He asked how much. I need $3,000, I said. It was such a small amount. $3,000. My father wore a watch that cost more than that. Rebecca's engagement ring cost 200 times that. Just to hold me over until I find something new. I'll pay you back, I promise. Every penny. My father put down his fork. He looked at me with the expression you give a stranger asking for change on the street. No, he said simply. Dad, please, I said. The desperation in my voice was only half fake. This was the test. This was the moment. I don't have anywhere else to go. You need to learn responsibility, my father said, cutting me off. You're 30 years old, Sarah. When are you going to get your life together? When are you going to stop being a burden? A burden. He called me a burden. His daughter. His blood. Richard, my mother said. For one brief, shining second, I thought she was going to defend me. Don't be so harsh. Thank God, I thought. Finally, someone. 3,000 is too much, my mother continued. That's a vacation. That's a new handbag. We can't just throw that kind of money at Sarah every time she makes poor choices. Every time. As if there had been other times. As if I'd ever asked them for anything. I've never asked you for money before, I said. My voice was shaking now. Real tears were forming. Not once. Not ever. I'm begging you. Please, I'm going to be homeless. Rebecca looked at Marcus. They had that silent conversation couples have. Then she turned to me. Her expression wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was pity. Sarah, she said, her voice gentle like she was talking to a child. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe being homeless for a little while will teach you resilience. It'll give you motivation. You can't just expect us to save you every time life gets hard. Being homeless for a little while. My sister, my own sister, was suggesting I live on the streets as a character-building exercise. Trevor started. Everyone looked at him. Hope bloomed in my chest like a desperate flower. I could let you stay in my garage. It's not heated, but it's got electricity. You'd have to be out by 7 a.m. every day, though. Melissa doesn't want you around when she's getting ready for work. The garage. He was offering me his garage. The same garage where they kept their ski equipment and old furniture. I would be sleeping next to a broken elliptical machine. That's generous of you, Trevor, my father said, nodding approvingly. See, Sarah? The family comes through. You just have to be willing to humble yourself. Humble myself. By sleeping in a garage. I stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor. I have to go. You didn't eat, my mother said. Not come back. Not stay. Just you didn't eat. Like that was the tragedy here. I walked out of that house. I got into my Corolla. I sat in the driver's seat on the street in River Oaks. And I laughed. It was a horrible sound. A broken sound. But I laughed because the test was complete. I had my answer. Crystal clear. Undeniable. My family would let me be homeless. They would rather I sleep in a garage than give me $3,000. $3,000 to the people who spent $40,000 on a wedding ice sculpture. I pulled out my phone. I called the one person I knew would tell me the truth. Mrs. Rodriguez. She'd been my neighbor when I was growing up. Before my parents made their money and moved to River Oaks. Back when we lived in a small 3-bedroom house in Montrose. Mrs. Rodriguez had watched me grow up. She'd fed me dinner when my parents worked late. She'd taught me how to make tamales. She'd been at my high school graduation. She hadn't been invited to Rebecca's wedding. Mija, she answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm. It was home. How are you, baby girl? I broke. I told her everything. Not about the money. I couldn't. Not yet. But I told her about dinner, about the garage, about being called a burden. She listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Sarah, honey, come over. Right now. Come over." I drove to her house in Montrose. The same house she'd lived in for 40 years. Small, modest. The paint was peeling. The fence needed fixing. She was standing on the porch when I pulled up. She opened her arms and I fell into them like I was 7 years old again. We went inside. Her house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. She sat me down at her kitchen table. The same table where I'd done my homework. Where I'd cried over my first breakup. Where I'd felt loved. "How much do you need?" she asked. I stared at her. "What? How much money do you need to not be homeless?" "Mrs. Rodriguez, no. I didn't come here to ask you for money. I just needed to talk." "I know you didn't ask," she said. She was already walking to her bedroom. "That's why I'm offering." She came back with an envelope. She set it on the table between us. "There's $1,200 in there," she said. "It's my emergency fund. It's every extra dollar I've saved for the last 2 years." I pushed it back toward her. "I can't take this. This is your security. You are my security," she interrupted. She pushed it back. "Sarah, when my husband died, when I couldn't afford the funeral, who showed up? You did. You were 23 years old and working 2 jobs, and you gave me every penny you had. You told me family takes care of family. I'd forgotten about that. It was 7 years ago. I'd given her $800. It was everything in my savings account. I'd eaten ramen for 2 months. You paid for my mammogram last year," she continued. "When I was too scared to go because I didn't have insurance. You paid for it. Don't think I forgot." "That was different," I whispered. "That was your health. And this is yours," she said. She covered my hand with hers. Her skin was warm and papery. "Your mental health. Your safety. Baby girl, take this money. Let me be family to you since your blood has forgotten how." I looked at this 72-year-old woman. This woman who lived on Social Security and cleaned houses part-time. This woman who was offering me her entire emergency fund, her safety net, her cushion against disaster. And I compared her to my family. My wealthy, successful, comfortable family who'd offered me a garage. "Mrs. Rodriguez," I said. "Can I tell you a secret?" She squeezed my hand. "Always, mija. Always. I'm going to be okay," I said. "I promise you I'm going to be more than okay. But what you just offered me, what you just did, that's worth more than any amount of money. That's love. Real love." She looked confused, but she smiled. "You're a good girl, Sarah. You always were. Don't let them make you forget that." I left her house with her envelope. I didn't take the money out. I carried it with me like a talisman. Proof that family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up when you had nothing to offer but need. The next morning, I made the calls. All of them. One by one. I called my father's brother, Uncle James. I'd helped him move last year. Packed his entire house. Spent 3 days lifting boxes in the July heat. $3,000? He repeated when I explained. "Sarah, I'd love to help, but I just bought a boat. A real beauty. 40-foot yacht. I'm a little tight right now." He'd just bought a boat. I needed a place to live. He'd bought a boat. I called my mother's sister, Aunt Catherine. I'd watched her kids every weekend for 6 months when she was going through her divorce. Free childcare while she found herself at a spa in Arizona. "Oh, Sarah," she sighed. "You know I would, but I'm saving for my trip to Europe. I've got flights booked, hotels. I can't cancel now. They're non-refundable." Non-refundable flights were more important than her niece having shelter. I called my cousin David. We'd grown up together. He'd been my best friend until he got rich off Bitcoin. I'd lent him $500 when he was starting out. He'd never paid me back. "Man, that's rough," he said. I could hear a video game in the background. But you know how it is. Money's tight for everyone. Money's tight. He drove a Tesla. He lived in a penthouse. Money was tight. One by one, I called everyone. Every aunt, every uncle, every cousin, every person I'd helped, every person I'd supported, every person who'd said we're family, we're blood, we stick together. Every single one had an excuse, a reason, a justification for why they couldn't help me. Why $3,000, an amount they'd spend on a dinner or a watch or a weekend trip, was just too much to give their family member who was about to be homeless. The last call I made was to my sister Rebecca. I saved her for last because part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, thought maybe she'd be different. Maybe the sister who'd shared a room with me for 16 years would remember what it was like before the money, before Marcus, before she became someone I didn't recognize. "Rebecca," I said when she answered. "It's me. Can we talk?" "Sarah, if this is about the money, I told you. I'm going to be homeless," I interrupted. "In 5 days. I'm going to be on the street. Do you understand that? Your sister is going to be sleeping in her car." There was silence. Then a sigh. "Sarah, you're being dramatic. Trevor offered you the garage." "The garage, Rebecca. He offered me a garage. Do you remember when we were kids? When Dad lost his job and we had to move in with Grandma? We shared a twin bed for 8 months. We promised each other we'd never let the other one struggle like that again. We were children," she said. Her voice was cold. "We're adults now. Adults take responsibility for their choices." "What choice did I make?" I asked. "What did I do to deserve this?" "You didn't marry well," she said. The words came out flat, factual. "You didn't invest in your career. You didn't build wealth. Those were choices, Sarah. Choices have consequences. I didn't marry well. That's what it came down to. I hadn't married a rich man, so I deserved to be homeless." "Do you love Marcus?" I asked. It was off topic, but I needed to know. What kind of question is that? Do you love him, or do you love what he can give you? She hung up. That was my answer. I sat in my car outside a Starbucks. I'd made every call. I'd completed every test. The results were in, conclusive, definitive, final. My entire family had failed. Every single person. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The people who were supposed to be my safety net. They'd all chosen their comfort over my survival. I looked at Mrs. Rodriguez's envelope on my passenger seat. $1,200. Everything she had. Offered without hesitation to someone who wasn't even blood. Then I looked at my phone. At the banking app. At the number that read $67,800,000. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. It was time for phase 2. I called Marcus Chen. "It's done," I said. "They all failed. Every single one." "I'm sorry," he said. And he meant it. "Are you ready to proceed with the plan?" "Yes," I said. "Let's do it exactly like we discussed." "Understood. I'll have everything ready by tomorrow." "Sarah, are you sure? This is permanent. Once we do this, there's no going back." I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time in my life, I didn't see the disappointment, the burden, the afterthought. I saw someone who deserved better. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. The next day, I showed up at the family dinner again. Unannounced. Unexpected. I walked through the front door like I owned the place. They were in the living room this time. Pre-dinner drinks, expensive scotch, cheap conversation. They looked up when I entered. The expressions ranged from surprise to annoyed. My mother actually rolled her eyes. "Sarah," my father said, "we've talked about just showing up. We have boundaries now." Boundaries. That's what he called abandoning his daughter. Boundaries. "I need 5 minutes," I said. My voice was different. It wasn't small anymore. It wasn't apologetic. It was the voice of someone with $67 million and nothing left to lose. "Sarah, if this is about money again," Trevor started. "It's not," I interrupted. "It's about honesty, about truth, about family." I pulled out my phone. I'd prepared a presentation, screenshots, receipts, dates, times, Amounts. I'd documented every time I'd helped any of them, every favor, every loan, every moment I'd shown up when they needed something. 3 years ago, I said, showing them my phone. Rebecca, you needed a bridesmaid dress for your friend's wedding. You didn't want to spend the money. I bought it. $400. You never paid me back. Rebecca's face flushed. That was different. 2 years ago, I continued. Trevor, your car broke down in Austin. You called me at 2 a.m. I drove 4 hours to pick you up. I paid for the tow truck. $600. You said you'd Venmo me. You never did. Trevor looked at Melissa. She looked at her drink. 18 months ago, I said. Dad, your country club dues bounced. You were embarrassed. You asked me to cover them until your dividend check cleared. $1,200. You told me it was a loan. It became a gift. My father's jaw was tight. That's not how I remember it. I have the receipts, I said. I showed them. Bank statements, text messages, Venmo requests that were ignored. Every piece of evidence that proved I'd been their ATM, their safety net, their backup plan. In total, I said, over the last 5 years, I've given this family $42,000. $42,000 from someone you all claim is irresponsible with money. Someone who doesn't have her life together. Silence. They couldn't argue with the numbers. They were right there in black and white. And last Sunday, I continued, when I needed $3,000. When I was about to be homeless, every single one of you said no, found excuses, told me it was a learning opportunity. Sarah, my mother said. Her voice had that warning tone. What is your point? My point, I said. I was smiling now. A real smile. A smile that came from somewhere deep and true. My point is that I ran an experiment. I wanted to know who my real family was. Who would show up when I had nothing to offer? No success. No money. No value. Just need. This is ridiculous, Rebecca said. This is manipulation. Is it? I asked. Is it manipulation to test the people who claim to love you? The people who say family is everything? Or is it clarity? What do you want, Sarah? My father demanded. You want an apology? You want us to say we're sorry? Fine, we're sorry. Is that what you need to hear? No, I said. I don't want an apology. I want you to know the truth. I want you to understand exactly what you are. I pulled out a folder. A thick manila folder that Marcus Chen had prepared. I handed it to my father. What is this? He asked. Open it. He did. His face went white. Actually, white. All the blood drained out of it like someone had pulled a plug. This is, he stuttered. This is a bank statement for $67.8 million, I finished. I won the lottery 6 weeks ago. Mega Millions, $127 million jackpot. You could have heard a pin drop. A feather fall. A heartbreak. My mother grabbed the folder out of my father's hands. She stared at it. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. No sound came out. Rebecca's expensive scotch glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered. Amber liquid spread across the wood like blood. She didn't even notice. Trevor actually stood up. You're lying, he said. This is fake. You're trying to... It's not fake, I said. I pulled out a second document. This one was from the Texas Lottery Commission. Official letterhead. Official signature. It's very real. I'm a multimillionaire. I have been for 6 weeks, and I didn't tell any of you. Why? My mother whispered. It was the first thing she'd said. Why would you hide this from your family? Because I needed to know, I said. I needed to know what you were, who you really were when I had nothing, when I couldn't offer you anything, when I was just Sarah, just your daughter, your sister, your family member who needed help. I looked at each of them, one by one, making eye contact, letting them see that I saw them, really saw them. And now I know, I said. I know exactly what my family is worth. You're worth a garage. You're worth a non-refundable flight. You're worth a boat. That's your value. Sarah, baby, my father said. He was standing now, moving toward me. His hands were out, placating. His voice had that warmth I'd only ever heard him use with Marcus. You have to understand. We didn't know. If we'd known about the money— That's the point, Dad, I interrupted. You didn't know about the money. You thought I was broke, homeless, desperate, and you still said no. The money doesn't change what you did. It just proves what you are. What we are? Rebecca was standing too. Her voice was rising, getting shrill. What we are? We're your family, Sarah. We made mistakes, okay? We didn't handle it well. But you can't seriously be holding this against us. You were testing us. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, I said. I was quoting my father now. He'd said those exact words to me 100 times growing up. Every time I complained. Every time I wanted something my siblings got. Life isn't fair, Rebecca. But it is revealing. So what now? Trevor asked. You just came here to rub our faces in it? To show us you're rich and we're terrible people? Is that it? No, I said. I came here to tell you the truth, and to give you one more chance. They all looked at me. Hope flickered in their eyes like desperate flames. One more chance? My mother said. Sarah, honey, we can fix this. We can make this right. You're our daughter, our sister. We love you. Do you? I asked. Do you love me? Or do you love what I can give you now? No one answered. That was answer enough. I pulled out a checkbook. Not a regular checkbook. This was from my trust account, the one Marcus Chen had set up. Each check could be written for any amount. I held it up so they could all see. Here's the test, I said. The final test. I'm going to ask you one question. If you answer honestly, I'll give you money. A lot of money. Enough to change your life. But if you lie, if you try to manipulate me or play me or pretend, I'll know. And you'll get nothing. They were all nodding. Eager. Desperate. They looked like dogs waiting for treats. Here's the question, I said. If I had stayed broke, if I had never won this money, if I called you tomorrow and said I was homeless, sleeping in my car, what would you do? My father opened his mouth immediately. We'd help you, of course. The truth, I said. Not what you wish were true. Not what sounds good. What would you actually do? He closed his mouth. The silence stretched. It went on and on and on. The truth was too ugly to speak out loud. Finally, my mother said it. She said the quiet part out loud. We wouldn't do anything, she said. Her voice was small. We'd probably tell you it was a learning experience, that you needed to figure it out yourself. At least she was honest. I wrote her a check. $10,000. That's for telling the truth, I said. I handed it to her. Use it however you want. I looked at the others. Anyone else want to be honest? Trevor shook his head. Rebecca was crying now. Real tears. Messy tears. My father just looked old, defeated. I didn't think so, I said. I put the checkbook away. Here's what's going to happen. I'm setting up a trust, a family trust. It will provide for all of you. Medical expenses, true emergencies, things you actually need. But you'll never see the principal. You'll never get to touch the money directly. You'll have to prove the need, prove the emergency. And it won't be me making those decisions. It'll be a third party, a trustee who doesn't know you, who doesn't care about your excuses. That's not fair, Trevor said. That money is yours, but we're family. Family shares. You're right, I said. Family shares. Real family. The family that shows up. Mrs. Rodriguez gets a trust too, a bigger one. She gets a new house, fully paid, and a monthly income for life. Because when I had nothing, she offered me everything. Rebecca's head snapped up. Mrs. Rodriguez, the cleaning lady, you're giving our family's money to the help? She's not the help, I said. My voice was ice. She's family. Real family. The kind that doesn't keep score. The kind that doesn't measure love in dollars. I walked toward the door. I was done. This chapter was closed. "Sarah, wait," my father called out. "Please, don't leave like this. We can fix this. We can be better." I turned back, one last time. "Can you?" I asked. "Can you really? Or are you just saying that because now you know I'm worth something?" No one answered. The silence was my answer. "I was worth something before the money," I said. "I was always worth something. You just couldn't see it. And that's not my failure, that's yours." I left. I walked out of that house. I got into my Corolla, my old, beat-up, beautiful Corolla, and I drove away. But I didn't drive home. I drove to Mrs. Rodriguez's house. She was in her garden pulling weeds in the evening light. She looked up when I pulled up. She smiled that warm, beautiful smile. "Mija," she called out. "You okay? You look like you've been crying." "I have," I said. I got out of the car. I walked up to her. "But they're good tears. I need to tell you something." We sat on her porch. The same porch where she'd bandaged my scraped knees when I was 7. Where she'd taught me how to tie my shoes. Where she'd told me I was smart and strong and worthy. I told her everything. The lottery, the money, the test. Her face went through a dozen emotions. Shock, disbelief, understanding. And then, tears. "Oh, Mija," she said, pulling me into her arms. "Oh, my sweet girl, what they did to you." "It's okay," I said, "because you showed me what real family looks like." I pulled back. I looked her in the eyes. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I bought you a house, a real house, 3 bedrooms, a real garden, in the neighborhood you grew up in. It's fully paid for. The deed is in your name. And there's a trust that will give you $5,000 a month for the rest of your life." She stared at me. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. "You saved me," I continued. "Not with the money you offered, with the love, with showing me that I was worth saving. Let me save you back." She cried. We both cried. We sat on that porch and we cried together as the sun set over Houston. This was family. This was what it was supposed to feel like. 2 weeks later, I was standing in a brand new building, the Rodriguez Community Center, named after Mrs. Rodriguez. It was in the neighborhood where we both grew up, the neighborhood my parents had left behind when they got rich. The center had job training programs, financial literacy classes, free legal aid, mental health services, everything a person needed to build a life, to escape poverty, to break cycles. Mrs. Rodriguez stood next to me at the ribbon cutting. She was wearing a new dress. I'd taken her shopping. She'd cried in the dressing room. "I've never had a new dress," she'd said. "Always secondhand, always someone else's first." "Not anymore," I'd told her. "Never again." The local news was there. They wanted to interview the anonymous donor who'd funded the center. I said no. This wasn't about me. This was about giving back to the place that made me who I was. My family wasn't there. I hadn't invited them, but I knew they knew. Word travels fast in rich circles. They'd heard about the center, about Mrs. Rodriguez's house, about the trust fund for her grandchildren's education. They'd called, left messages, emails, texts, all saying the same thing. "We made a mistake. We're sorry. Give us another chance. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 3 months after that, I was sitting in Marcus Chen's office again. The same office where this all started. But I was different now. I was wearing a suit that cost more than my old car. My hair was professionally done. I looked like money. But more importantly, I felt like me. "The Rodriguez Scholarship Fund is fully established," Marcus said, sliding papers across his desk. "Full rides to any Texas university for students from underserved communities. We're funding 50 students per year. In perpetuity." "Good," I said. "What about the small business grants?" "Approved. $2 million allocated annually for women-owned businesses in low-income areas. No interest loans. Business coaching included." I nodded. This was what money was for. Not boats. Not ice sculptures. not proving you were better than someone else. It was for lifting people up, for giving chances to people who deserved them, but never got them. There's one more thing, Marcus said. He looked uncomfortable. Your family hired a lawyer. They're contesting your mental competency. They're claiming you're not fit to manage your own affairs, that you're being manipulated. I laughed. It was a real laugh, a genuine laugh. Of course they are. They want guardianship. They want control of your assets, for your own protection, they say. Can they win? Marcus smiled. Not a chance. You've been working with me for months. Every decision documented. Every choice rational. Every investment sound. They have no case. Their lawyer knows it. He's doing it because they're paying him, but he knows it's garbage. Let them try, I said. Let them show everyone exactly who they are. The case went to court. It was humiliating for them. Their lawyer presented their argument. Sarah Chen is giving away money recklessly, to strangers, to community projects. She's not acting in her own self-interest. My lawyer stood up. Marcus had hired the best. She was terrifying. Your Honor, she said, the petitioners claim Ms. Chen is incompetent because she's giving money to charity. Let's examine this claim. Ms. Chen has established a foundation with proper oversight. She's invested wisely. She's secured her own financial future. She's paid all her taxes. She's broken no laws. The only people claiming she's incompetent are the people who stood to gain from her staying poor. She pulled out the recordings. I'd recorded every phone call during the test. Every conversation where my family said no. Every excuse. Every justification. The judge listened to them all. His face got darker and darker. When Rebecca's voice came through saying, maybe being homeless for a little while will teach you resilience, the judge actually flinched. When Trevor offered his garage, the judge wrote something down. When my father called me a burden, the judge looked at my family sitting in the courtroom. The look he gave them could have melted steel. Petition denied, he said when it was all over. Ms. Chen is clearly competent, more competent than the petitioners in my opinion. This court finds the petition was filed in bad faith. The petitioners are ordered to pay all court costs and Ms. Chen's legal fees. My family's faces went white. Their lawyer's fees plus mine. It was going to cost them over $100,000. Money they didn't have. Money they'd have to beg and borrow to get. They tried to approach me after, in the courthouse hallway. My father reached for my arm. Sarah, please, can we just talk? We just did, I said. In court, where you tried to take everything from me. Again. We were worried, my mother said. We thought you were being taken advantage of. I was being taken advantage of, I said. By you. For 30 years. I'm done now. Rebecca was crying. Again. Always crying when it didn't get her what she wanted. Sarah, we're sorry. We really are. We were wrong. Please. We're family. No, I said. The word felt powerful. Final. We're not. We're related, but we're not family. Family shows up. Family cares. Family doesn't measure your worth by your bank account. I walked away. I didn't look back. 1 year later, I'm standing in the Rodriguez Community Center. It's the anniversary celebration. Over 500 people are here. People whose lives were changed by the programs, by the opportunities, by someone believing in them when everyone else had given up. Mrs. Rodriguez is next to me. She's healthy, happy. Her grandchildren are here. They're going to college on full scholarships. They're going to have chances she never had. Chances I almost didn't have. A young woman approaches me. She's maybe 22. She's wearing a graduation gown. Ms. Chen, she says, I wanted to thank you. The scholarship, the business grant. I just opened my own bakery. It's small, but it's mine. It's really mine. I hug her. This stranger who isn't a stranger. This woman whose life I got to touch. You did the work, I tell her. I just opened the door. You walked through it. She cries. Happy tears. Grateful tears. The kind of tears that mean something. My phone buzzes. It's a text from an unknown number. I almost delete it, but something makes me open it. Sarah, it's Rebecca. I know you blocked all our numbers. I'm texting from a friend's phone. I just wanted you to know. Marcus left me. The prenup was ironclad. I got nothing. Mom and Dad lost their house. The reverse mortgage caught up with them. They're living with Trevor now, in his garage. Isn't that ironic? We finally understand. We finally get it. We're sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I read it twice. I feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not schadenfreude, not vindication. Just nothing. They're strangers who hurt me once. That's all they are now. I don't respond. There's nothing to say. They didn't learn. They only understood when it happened to them. That's not growth. That's not change. That's just consequences. I delete the text. I put my phone away. I turn back to the celebration. To the people who became my real family. To the community that showed me what love actually looks like. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezes my hand. You okay, mija? I'm perfect, I say. And I mean it. For the first time in my life, I actually mean it. The lottery didn't give me money. It gave me truth. It gave me clarity. It showed me who people really were when I had nothing to offer but myself. And it taught me the most important lesson of my life. You don't find family. You build it. With people who show up, who care, who measure your worth by your character, not your bank account. My blood family failed every test. But my chosen family, they passed the only test that matters. They loved me when I had nothing. And that love is worth more than $67 million could ever buy. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever wondered who would really be there when everything falls apart, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. And remember, the family you're born into doesn't define you. The family you choose, the one that chooses you back, that's the family that matters. Hit that subscribe button if this story touched you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they're worth more than how they're treated. And remember, the best revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's building a life so beautiful, so full, so meaningful, that they become irrelevant. That's my story. That's my truth. And it all started with a test I knew they'd fail.